look, the way I got into it was a special time in South Africa in terms of journalism. Young people, girls and boys, men and women, young men and women, were drawn into the international networks because they needed South Africans who could speak the languages, who knew the territory, and who were willing to work hard and take risks. It was quite, what's the word, revolutionary is not the word, but forward thinking, that all the foreign networks employed a lot of black people, which at the time wasn't happening in South African media houses outside the so-called black newspapers, or, and it was apartheid, So, I mean, I've worked together side by side with black colleagues for 40 years, which is very unusual for someone of my age to have had that kind of relationship with black people. You can't do that easily now. Remember, I'm a filmmaker and a television guy, so that's what I know how to get into. I can talk quickly about, if you want to sell articles, the first piece of advice I give you is don't try and sell it to the New York Times or the Sydney Morning Herald or the London Times. They're not going to take it. They've probably got an agreement with their journalists that they don't use freelancers. And anyway, they've got a correspondent or stringer here. So go to Chicago, go to Baltimore, go to Portland, see what newspapers there might have a need for a feature piece. And so attack the village, not the castle on the top of the hill. So that's, and more difficult with television. Of course, I always say it's much easier to make a documentary than it is to sell a documentary, which I think you know. So you've really, to make a documentary and make a living out of it, you've got to sell the idea first and get someone to give you a 250,000 Rand or even 1.5 million Rand to make a documentary. And then you've got to pay people like Polani to film the thing and edit it and, that kind of stuff. And you need to get people who work properly and who are paid properly.
Yeah.
We don't make the money we used to make. It just doesn't happen, and it's not going to happen. So, you can pitch to Netflix if you want. It's a very difficult and expensive process, but you can just go onto the web and ask, how do I pitch to, show me the Netflix pitch deck, and it's easily downloadable. They ask you questions. Is there a character arc? What's the character arc? What are the main characters? So you've got to done a lot of research to know if you're going to do a documentary about, let's say, GBV in South Africa. You need to know, I'm going to speak to this woman and she's willing to have a camera crew there for 3 days, and she might only get a couple of thousand Rand as a kind of thank you for using your electricity, but you're not going to pay her for the interviews,
Yeah.
But you will possibly give, in documentary terms, we often give people 2,000 or 3,000 Rand to say thank you, we've used your electricity, we've taken up your time, but you've got a budget for that. So I mostly work for people who do that because I'm not very good at setting at budgets and that kind of thing. Luckily, my creative abilities are what people hire me for, not for my pitching ability.